This is where the models that have come in place have aligned for that. So when Europeans came, they also came with missionaries, yeah, to be able to convert people to another concept of faith. And then when you remove the faith that's indigenous, you then have to continuously always go to the person who has given you that faith for the answers. If you ever have questions or doubts, you have to go to them for those answers. And that's something that is systematic and continues forever, because it's not something from your own source. The same when you go and you have educational systems put in place, because you didn't put them in place, you always have to go. So when you get, basic schooling, you have to go to the secondary school. You have to then go to their colleges. You may have to travel to go and further extend your education to be able to then come back to get positions in an infrastructure that was created by the same people who have come in. So at no point do you ever look to yourself to understand how growth and development comes in, because you are not following your own programs. The same with politics. When they came in, they brought their political agendas, their ideologies, their two-party systems, and it was about who could attain the positions to be able to be in leadership and do some of the things that they say they're doing for progress. But the progress was in order to benefit Europe. It was able to benefit England, not benefit the country as a whole, because all of the capital, all of the, the GDPs was to benefit the mother country or the fatherland or our kings outside of our continent. The story goes is that you must invest in that what makes you the most profit. And when you go to the continent and you're building relationships, it means that the relationship built will incur benefits for you, tangible and intangible. And having access to a continent that has everything, because Africa is the breadbasket of the world. Most of the resources and minerals come from the continent of Africa, as well as the brains, as well as the labor, as well as the initiatives, as well as a lot of the concepts that we're able to see and develop are a result of relationships had between the continent and Europe. They take our best brains to be able to assist in the infrastructure that is already formatted, to be able to establish and develop a lot of the things that we see, the economical growth, the scientific growth. They're coming from a lot of our brains that have fused alongside the European agenda to be able to develop a lot of these narratives. And without us, the developments that we've seen in regards to the speed, I don't think will have existed if it was just them alone. Because especially when we look at, the concepts that we have from, Plato and Homer, they were coming from scholars who had already studied in Kemet, which is Egypt, and looking at the scholarships and the education there, taking the concepts from the education and bringing that back to Europe. And then having a conversation in Europe around those who are classified as most learned, but they're coming from looking at the continent's concepts to be able to create their own concepts and develop those concepts further. And this is why when we get to the 14th, 15th century, we're looking at years of them fine-tuning their ideologies based on the African models to be able to go back into Africa with models that we resonate with to be able to subdue us in the way that they have all over the entire continent. When you follow somebody else's model, you're always going to go back to them for help, for the next stage. So when it comes down to us being in a pandemic, who's responsible for our healthcare on the continent of Africa? Is it Africa or is it the World Health Organization? Who voluntarily gives so much vaccines and so much medical aid to the continent of Africa, of the unwanted drugs that they have out there in the world? They're assisting us with our children. Remember the scandals of polio and the scientific warfare around Marburg and Ebola and all of the issues that we have health-wise on the continent of Africa. Where is the root of all of these things? How is it that Africa is the only continent that is able to have such outbreaks and the rest of the world isn't, if everything is equal and normalized? And if we're relying on other people for our well-being and our healthcare, where do we get the time to be able to develop any of the initiatives, seeing that we have everything and that we have most of the cleverest minds on the planet? Why is it that we're still not able to develop that in-house and we're still externally going outside to be able to learn from those who have come back to teach us, but we cannot now surpass our teachers? No, it's a statement. Because as you said, we're always asking for help. But again, aid into the continent of Africa is something that I have seen for my whole life. I've watched campaigns in England on my television screen showing me children with swollen bellies and flies on their eyes for the last 30 years. And the amount of money that they say they raise, the amount of initiatives that are out there, the amount of organizations, the amount of charities. How is it that Africa, 30 years on, is still in the same position it was 30 years before? For 300 years before, according to Europeans, it's not true. But as a result of it not being true, it's also about the mirror that we're being given to be able to look at the continent of Africa as one that's always needing. Because when you see something that's always needing, you don't understand how to invest in the development for them to be progressive, because the continent's classified as a dependent as opposed to a parent.